Okay, so I may sound sick because I guess like I had a die-off for Herxheimer thing start up a couple days ago, but honestly I'm not really sure because it's kind of weird and it's hard to really tell what caused what. Because like my throat was kind of hurting. I thought maybe it was like from something with like the not really acid reflux but like burping because of like D-limonene. And then like well my throat didn't start hurting until like some hours later, but it wasn't really hurting that bad. It was just like a little sore, but not really. It wasn't even like anything serious. And then like a couple hours after that, I got hungry, which is typical because due to the iatrogenic metabolic issues I have, I'm hungry like all the time because my body can't really like get energy for food like it should be able to. And so this was after I had literally like just ate twice. So it was really hot, and I assumed maybe my blood sugar was dropping. But either way, even sometimes when it's not dropping, I like rarely get headaches, nowhere near like how I used to when I was like still staying with relatives and stuff. So pretty much I just thought that like maybe my head was hurting from like low blood sugar. But hold up, I need to try to blow my nose, or attempt to. Or not low blood sugar, I didn't even mean to say that. I meant to say probably dropping. Because one thing that I've learned since my first quote-unquote clinical trial, or really my CGM trial, and the one that I just did, which my pre-vid has some screenshots of it, is that like sometimes symptoms are more just due to like other things I have going on, like the dysautonomia, or I guess I have all around, maybe not even really the iatrogenic brain damage, but just like neurological type issues caused by just having bacterial overgrowth and mold toxicity for so long, and the mycotoxins and endotoxins. But pretty much like with POTS type stuff, apparently it's like a known thing that like sometimes you get symptoms, not even because your blood sugar is high or low, but just because of like the speed that it's like dropping and rising. And even before I had like got that verified, that's pretty much what I was already thinking since my first CGM trial. Since it would like sometimes say rapidly rising or rapidly dropping, and I'd be having symptoms, my blood sugar would be at 89 and stuff, which that's not low. Low is 70 and lower, so yeah. So anywho, I don't really mean to say low blood sugar, but I guess like maybe it was dropping, and so I had a headache. But typically when I have headaches from that, even if they last all day, they go away. Like once I go to sleep for a couple minutes. Same thing when I'm I guess orthostatic pressure type headaches from like I can't really give a good definition for that right now, but yeah, so those will go away. But I noticed that like when I went to sleep for a little while and I woke back up at night, I still had it, and then I still had it the next day, and then I still had it. Not as bad though. But then I remembered, because when I was staying with relatives, for one I was sicker, and then also there was the whole thing where I like had that tonsil infection for those 2+ years, at least 3. I saw videos of that, but honestly I think it's pretty graphic, and I doubt that anybody wants to see that. So when I had that, and just being sick in general, I remembered that like sometimes I would have headaches or migraines that were like a side symptom, or even really what I could consider referred pain from my throat being inflamed. So it was like referred pain from my throat. But it was just kind of weird how it started off, because it seemed like I was just having like a headache a little bit from like something else, but then it turned into something else. So I think it's die-off for Herxheimer, which if that's the case, that's a good thing, because like my nose is stuffy right now. My throat doesn't hurt as bad anymore. But it's weird because like I haven't had symptoms like that, especially the stuffy nose thing I have right now, which I didn't have in the beginning, but I did yesterday and today. I haven't had anything like that in like years, really since living indoors, because as I talk about in some other video somewhere that I know it's in my How to Know If You Have Mitochondrial Dysfunction or whatever in the world playlist, I talk about mold toxicity and sick building syndrome, and how like I pretty much was being made to feel like I just had a quote-unquote cold for like my whole life, just about until I started staying outdoors full time. But actually I just had sick building syndrome and mold toxicity, so I haven't had a stuffy nose since staying indoors. I know even like the last time I stayed indoors for a couple days, I got really, really sick in there due to a couple of different things. I had a stuffy nose in, but like yeah, it's kind of eerie though, and kind of flashbacky as well. And then the throat pain, I haven't had that since being indoors either. Although I do have to like wear a mask most of the day, and even like at night, because like suffocating and dry throat easily due to maybe the tonsil removal, definitely the tonsil removal, but I think like maybe some other things with metabolic issues. But other than that, I even gotten better with that. So it's kind of like eerie having the symptoms again. It's kind of like a flare-up type stuff, but I think it's Herxheimer. Because other than that, I don't know why I'd be sick. I really don't get sick. Like other than the issues that I just have going on, like I don't get sick. So I think it's Herxheimer. I don't really think it'd be anything else. And if I'm sick because of the rain, then that would be weird, because like when it was rainy and kind of cold, I didn't get sick then. It wouldn't make sense for me to get sick days later. And I also noticed like my back pain had got a little worse before the other stuff kicked in. And I think that was because like I maybe was like in a spot that wasn't too leveled. But I also think that could be Herxheimer / die-off. And like I said, if it is, that's honestly a good thing. But it means I need to like make sure I take a binder. But like I'm still trying to figure out exactly what a good protocol would be. But let me finally actually get to the point. So now I'm gonna start reading my notes. Now that I went on that rant about me having Herxheimer, which honestly I hope it is Herxheimer, because that means that like something's detoxing, and that'll be a good thing. Pretty much I have iatrogenic chronic illness from neurotoxin psychotropics. The abuse situation I was in didn't help; it just added to stuff. But I will say that like that, the brain damage to turn off the neurotransmitters and make the digestive system work, causing bowel impactions that would last for 30+ days, which of course means cell mutation, all types of bacterial overgrowth building up from stool just sitting in the stomach, digestive issues, screwing up the digestive system. Like I even think back to when I was in Cali, and there was that boy that he actually agreed to take Adderall and got played by doctors, and it messed up his whole digestive system. And he was upset because of soup kitchens, especially because like people are vegan out there. They would serve pasta all the time, and him and a lot of other people couldn't eat pasta. I actually couldn't either, but this was before I started checking my blood sugar. So like I didn't even know how dangerous like eating the stuff that I was having to eat actually was. But I had a sense that like I probably still had blood sugar issues from the psychotropic, which I definitely did. But pretty much that messed up like my digestive system. nerves. It causes brain damage, of course, and it just screwed up my immune system, which led to like a lot of things. And then once I dropped down to 80 pounds, I fortunately got stuck there, and then eventually stopped being able to digest food, and my bile pretty much stopped working. All that stuff started getting like really bad over time. Well, not over time. I would actually say that like once the whole dropping down to 80 pounds thing happened, things happened pretty quick. But like I was in just due to like my abuse situation with the family system, I just got gaslit so much about like the fact that I was sick and would always be told you're always saying something's hurting, you're always in pain, and different things like that. And that's like aside from like the medical gaslighting, which of course as I always say, once I got the GA, they would just like say that they just felt like I was being starved at home or accused me of sleeping around, and I also got accused of just being S8 at home. But nothing was done about me that because no one cared. But generally, I had like serious compounded health issues, but I was being gaslit about it. But I wish I wouldn't have been, because if I would have actually known that I was like really as sick as I was, which would have also made me like do even more research than I was already trying to do. And if I would have known that a lot of things, well, yeah, if I would have known a lot of things that I know now, and even that I like found out about in 2023, 2024, if I would have known that, well, crap, even in 2023 before escaping again, I would have like took the measures I needed to take to try to like start fixing stuff. Then like crap, I would have been taking butane, HCl, and digestive enzymes and activated charcoal every now and then, way before things even got bad, which probably would have kept things from getting bad. And pretty much like all of that messing up my immune system, that messed up my immune system. So when I got, I'm gonna say COVID-19 twice in the summer of 2020, and then I think June 2021, I definitely had it. Those two times I ended up getting long COVID, and it also just wouldn't have went as bad as it did if I wouldn't have already been sick pretty much. And I was very much gaslit about that, especially the first time I got it, and I had it really bad. Like I remember my dad's cousin is a doctor who was working on some testing site or something, and she said that I really needed to go to the ER, although I'm lucky that I didn't get to go because I was being gaslit by relatives, because I mean, what would they have done anyways? I would have just been in an environment with a lot of sick people where I would have gotten more sick, to be honest. But my immune system was already so compromised, that's why I got sick, because none of my relatives even got sick, not the ones I was staying with then. In fact, nobody else got sick the second time I got sick either. But of course, by this time I was already 80 pounds. But then when I got sick, I couldn't move for most of the day. Like I was stuck. Like I had a pallet on the floor because I had just moved in with, I had just moved to GA and I was staying with this other relative, and so like I had a floor pallet, and my back was hurting like really bad. I had pleuritis. My appetite went out the window. And that was just really, really bad because I already had iatrogenic metabolic issues. I was already severely underweight, even though like I didn't know it, because I never really been that self-aware with stuff like that. That revolves around like people being like really, what do they call it? Body aware. That's not what it's called. But I never really, I don't know, like when I had the metabolic syndrome / type 2 diabetes side effect and I got big, I didn't notice that I had gotten big. And when I got underweight, I didn't notice that either. It took like, especially once I got in GA and I constantly got like comments about looking sick or being smaller, people not believing I'm the age that I am. And also when I ran to Cali, up until me coming where I'm at last year, that like it did make me think, but I just never was really all that self-aware, so like I still didn't really think much about it. But now I kind of do, because now I kind of like well, I don't want to go on an irrelevant rant, but now I kind of do think about it. But I still like, I don't know, it's kind of funny because I don't get comments on it where I'm at now like I did in other places. And I think especially because like this is one of those areas where like people are like either really underweight or really overweight due to like all the bullcrap with the food chemicals and stuff. So like people, it's not uncommon to see somebody who's like really, really underweight. Okay, I got sidetracked. But yeah, so I also remember like finding out about something called SIRS and even long COVID, which I don't really know if I could say that, but I found out about that in either 2023 or 2024, which I'm pretty sure is probably 2024. But I'm just doing like a lot of like research and found out about a lot of things. Even like finding out about H-pylori, which as I talk about in some other video, I had already heard about, I had already found out about SIBO through research, and I don't know if I'd already found out about mold toxicity, which I mean I already knew about mold toxicity, but I don't know if I already had done research on like SIFO or just fungal overgrowths in general. I know that I did already know about candida, but that was before I had like found out about other types of fungal overgrowth. But anywho, I mean, most people have candida. Like if you live indoors and your tongue is always white, people say it's plaque, but really it's just because buildings have mold. So anywho, what was I gonna say with that? Crap, wait a minute. Okay, I remember. So I know I always give these different examples of medical gaslighting and how like it also makes you think about how in every situation people treat you the same but with different excuses. So to make a long story short, don't know whether this is going to make sense in the end or not. I ended up finding out about a homeless doctor where I didn't need ID, I didn't need SSN or any of that stuff when I was in Cali, which was good due to the whole thing with ageism and hiding from my abusers and all that stuff. So I had went to like see if like maybe I could get the mainstream like antibiotics, I think, for SIBO. I can't really remember much about it, but I'm pretty sure that's what I did. And I ended up getting told about H-pylori as well, which I think I did get rifaximin. I can't really remember, but like I recently thought about it and I was like, you know what, I think I did actually get like some type of antibiotic for that, but it didn't end up working anyways. Because for a while I forgot about it and I was like, I don't think I ever actually got the quote-unquote treatment for it, but actually I think that doctor did give it to me. But to get to the point anyways, the only reason why SIBO was even considered, although I had already brought it up, but I was kind of gaslit about that as well. But the only reason that SIBO and H. pylori was considered was because I was quote-unquote homeless. Like when the doctor had brought up H. pylori, I actually hadn't found out about it yet. I hadn't like seen any videos or articles about it. I hadn't came across anything about it yet. But once he said it, I did do more research on it, which led to me finding out about more things. But he only mentioned it because I was homeless. And it's really interesting that something like that with all the symptoms that I had was never mentioned when I was staying with relatives. Like they didn't give a crap about Jack, of course. I mean, they would like claim to be so worried about feeling like I was getting starved and sodomized at home, but they didn't do anything, of course. And like I always say, my Munch House is centered by proxy and cash for kids system abuse started off in NC, not GA. When I was in GA, the mandated reporters and other random people would at least admit that what was going on was obvious and that the abuse situation was obvious. But of course, they still never did anything because there is no help. When I was in NC, where everything started, and also that's where I was at when I originally dropped down 80 pounds, doctors just didn't even say anything about anything, like ever. They never said Jack about Jack. So like, I mean, I didn't even really know I was 80 pounds until I went to GA, really. But now that I'm quote-unquote homeless, now you want to mention H. pylori to me. And when I asked him, like, what causes it, he was like drinking dirty water, which that's absolutely bullcrap. In fact, technically, half of everybody has H. pylori, but, I mean, just like with parasites, it's just that a lot of people, some people don't have symptoms, or they do have symptoms, but they don't know that they're having symptoms of it. Or they just produce enough stomach acid in their life situations and health is good enough to where, like, it doesn't affect them. And so, yeah, like, everybody has it. It's not like you have to be sitting around drinking, like, muddy water out a puddle in the street or something. That was, like, very biased, and it's just, like, really interesting that was like made into like some type of homeless disease or something. But when he told me about H. pylori, it was just like really interesting that like that was never brought up, just like how really no real answer was ever brought up when I was staying with relatives and I was severely sick. But I mean, generally I have iatrogenic health issues, so I mean, pretty much that's just what you're just gonna like end up getting really sick, and you're typically never gonna get answers. But if you do research, you can like find out stuff on your own. But anywho, now a bullet point that I wanted to read is people are always talking about keto, in these different diets like carnivore and even vegetarian and vegan. And like I have a whole video about that I finally ended up making. People telling you to do diets is actually really, really dangerous because, for one, if you have SIBO, SIFO, some type of parasite, whatever in the world, that can make you like not be able to tolerate a lot of foods anymore. Or maybe you have like your DAO insufficient or something. Like you can become like protein intolerant, fiber intolerant, gluten and dairy intolerant from like having SIBO and these different types of overgrowth. Not to mention when you have low stomach acid, low pancreatic enzymes, and low or insufficient bile flow or whatever, that just makes you not be able to digest food in general, which makes eating or drinking anything cause issues. Also, the undigested food fermenting and just not being able to digest this food and sitting there in general feeds bacteria even more. Also, the healthy diets that revolve around fiber and vegetables and fruits, they spike your blood sugar, especially with the bullcrap food in the U.S., and they feed bad bacteria. And then carnivore, the quote-unquote original human diet, Caucasian people need to stop saying that. That's not the original human or the original human diet. That's like the Neanderthal caveman diet, but that doesn't work for every ethnicity, especially for people of my ethnicity. It's actually really dangerous. And you can also have all those things put together, which is typically how it's going to go. And so for my bullet point, I put, I can't do keto diet because I can't use ketones. I can't store fat. So also maybe catabolic imbalance. Or I probably still have the catabolic imbalance. Although it could just, me being underweight could still just be due to like the general iatrogenic metabolic issues. But I can't break down fat or use it either, or protein really, even on a cellular level. So I can't run on ketones and would just drop dead from hypoglycemia if I tried to just like do one of those like low carb, no carb diets, especially no carb. And obviously I can barely run on carbs because like I still have like the blood sugar dips, and like even my blood sugar is fine, like I still am like tired and stuff. And what was I gonna say with that? Oh yeah, and I still have to like eat so much just to still barely be able to function, which goes into the next thing, why cure, which has 2 bullet points pretty much. I want to be healthy and not have to be the person who has to eat 300 times a day and take supplements just to still barely be able to function. And like especially with all the stuff that's going on, like once the famine really breaks out and there really is no food or anything, I don't want to be the person that's still like hypoglycemic and underweight and can already barely function. And then when there's no food and the famine really hits, then like what am I gonna do? And I already had that dream about me just like pretty much starving to death once the famine hit. And then there's like the capsule shortages and all those things. And I mean crap, I've already talked about before, I'm pretty sure, how like it's a miracle that I've even been able to like still have money to get the HCL and stuff when I need it, and being able to find like resource centers that allow packages, which especially when I'm in like, when I was in Cali, like these different druggy areas that I call the Caucasian addict projection areas, where drug issues have gotten really bad due to it being legal in their areas and them not policing their crime, especially when it comes to the drug dealing. Like they don't want you to order any packages from anywhere because they're so paranoid about you like ordering LSD or something stupid like that. So like I get lucky even being able to access the supplements and being able to have them when I need it. Like crap, I remember how things went when my stuff got stolen and I ran out of enzymes, I think, back in November, and then I didn't have like any of that for 19 days and how that went. And then too, I want to be able to take care of myself because of course, I mean obviously I've always like wanted to be able to do that. I've had the saying since 6, if you want something done at all, you got to do it yourself, and different things like that. But if you're sick and you're like falling asleep and you can barely function and you can barely see and you're like in pain and all that stuff all the time, you're not really going to be able to do anything to take care of yourself and to get in a better predicament. And so there's also that. And of course, why somebody want to cure themselves is just really obvious in general, because nobody wants to be sick. And like I've said in other videos, like, I couldn't imagine if I was the type of person that just listened to doctors and let doctors gaslight me while having all the, well, not even just doctors, relatives especially, and just having like all the symptoms and being in pain and throwing up and having diarrhea all day long and all the stuff that I used to have going on, especially like when I was still staying with relatives before I ran away. I couldn't imagine still having all those symptoms and all that stuff going on and like having to worry about like just having diarrhea and throwing up on myself at the same time while like just walking down the road or something. I couldn't imagine still having all of that right now. And I wouldn't even still be alive because I was severely malnourished before I ran away. Like, my digestion was like absolutely like horrible. And then another bullet point, and I put fibro on the side so I can remember that. So I know I mentioned before that all buildings have mold and all that stuff. And I mentioned in some video that like in this one apartment specifically, I had like got some seeds from school for some plant growing project, and I accidentally like dropped a lot on the floor, and they were literally growing out the carpet because there was a burst pipe and the carpet was soaking wet. And I remember my stepmom kept talking about she wanted to move because she thought that my plants growing out the floor was mold, but the apartment people came out and they were like, it's not mold, it's just seeds from like my project because I dropped them on the floor. But that was still bull crap. Like, all buildings have mold, but especially like a building with water damage to the part where like the carpet in my room was soaking wet, there's definitely all types of mold in there, in the ceiling, in the walls, and under the floor. And so anywho, we did eventually move, but like looking back, since I think 2024, 2025, with all the research I had done, looking back on my stepmom's, her lungs collapsing, that was because of the mold toxicity. And a lot of people, they get diagnosed with asthma and bronchitis because they either live in areas where like the outdoor air pollution is really bad. Like, a lot of people in Georgia are told that they have bronchitis and asthma because there's a lot of like factories and dog food factories and stuff polluting the air. But if they move to somewhere else, they're not going to get told that they have bronchitis. But also a lot of people have those diagnoses because they live in places with really, really bad mold toxicity. And then I had swollen lymph nodes on my neck that are still there today, but they're nowhere near as big as they used to be on both sides. Like, when I was in 1st and 2nd grade, they were like so big that they were visible from like some feet away. And I remember like even a teacher I had like asked me about them, but the doctors, they never said anything. They just said that they don't know why I have them, but the only thing they ever said was that they're swollen lymph nodes, and that was it. And then at one point I had some fungus growing in my head. This was the same apartment, by the way, and it was like these weird things growing in my head that were like ooze slime, and I had to sleep with a towel on my pillow because it would just ooze slime all night, and it would like drip into my eye, and it was really nasty. And my stepmom, she was still trying to like do my hair anyways, which is actually really weird, and it would hurt really bad. Combing it would hurt, brushing it would hurt. I never went to the doctor for this, unfortunately, because I went through a lot of medical neglect throughout my life as well. And I remember, like, especially before running away, I would constantly talk about how, like, I had to beg to go to the doctor. Then when I finally would go, they wouldn't do anything about stuff. But yeah, that happened, and I now know that was totally fungus. And then I also used to have eczema, or eczema, whatever it's called, when I was, like, really young. And I also now know that was mold toxicity. I did get taken to the doctor for that. And I would be given this cream that wouldn't really do much, but eventually I guess my body was able to finally detox it enough, or either it wasn't able to detox it, so it wasn't coming out anymore, and then I didn't have eczema anymore. So yeah, there was that. And I look back on those things. Oh, I forgot to mention the fibro. So my dad was born with a hole in his heart, but he went through all types of medical gaslighting. So he wasn't told like anything until he was told that he had 4 months to live. And that was by the time I was 8 or 9, maybe a little younger, but definitely 8 and 9. So he would be at the doctor all the time. And I remember I was reading this poster once, and it talked about fibromyalgia and the symptoms of it, because I could read since I was 4, and I always like had a high reading level and all that. And I was just reading the posters about it, and I was like, I think I definitely have fibromyalgia. But I now know that that's symptoms of mold toxicity. In fact, MCAS, SIRS, chemical no. Wait. Hold up. No, yeah. Because that's multiple chemical sensitivity, that's MCS. And then there's mast cell activation syndrome, that's MCAS. And then a whole bunch of other things. Like, those are caused by mold toxicity, H-pylori, SIBO. All that stuff gone untreated can also cause colon cancer, stomach cancer, etc., brain damage, dementia, which that's also metabolic issues. Neurotoxic psychotropics also cause colon cancer, stomach cancer, diverticulitis, etc., etc. It also can cause H. pylori from the fact that they turn off the neurotransmitters that make the digestive system and the bowels and even the bladder work. Like, you can get anticholinergic side effects that make you not be able to use the bathroom, and they turn off your bowels, but also they can make you not be able to pee either. And so, yeah, I put the bullet point. I generally look back on lots of old red flags, like old symptoms of dysautonomia, symptoms I had before I was told that I supposedly have degenerative disc disease, but I'm not really sure how true that is, and like how much is just like from like the mold toxicity. But I know, like, especially since I was forced on the drugs mid-12 to early 14, like that's when my back really started to get bad. But certain things definitely do cause flare-ups. Like, I noticed like periods because of the inflammatory hormones, and then whenever I'm having die-off or Herxheimer, my back pain gets worse, which I wonder if that's like because of something's trying to leave those areas or what, but I don't know. But I do know that SIBO, H. pylori, mold toxicity, they all like cause joint inflammation and stuff, and of course metabolic issues / diabetes, and then all the malnutrition that goes along with that. Like, before I started like really researching the other stuff, that I just assumed that like my joint issues and even oral health going downhill is more due to like malnutrition. But yeah, I look back on a lot of red flags and things that I was always told were fine, and that I'm always saying I'm sick. Like, I remember when I used to say that I had acid reflux, even way before like my digestion went to hell. I would just be told that I don't have acid reflux, and I'm just I always say I'm sick and stuff like that, and I just want to be sick, and different weird things while being 80 pounds with a low hemoglobin A1C and all that stuff. So yeah, and then the reality bullet point. If I have health issues I can die from at any moment, I need to find my life's purpose and help others quick. Oh no, that's the wrong thing. That's not it. That's the wrong bullet point. Because I've already talked about too many other side things. No, this is it, I think. But I can't really see anything, though. Okay, so point. Alkalinity can cause false negatives for H. pylori. And that was a weird thing. My SIBO breath test and H. pylori test were negative, I think. I think they were. I don't even really remember if I got tested for H. pylori, though. I remember the dude just like mentioned it, and then I think he did give me rifaximin, which, like I said, didn't work at all. And I mean, one of the things about it is that, like, I had already had everything I've had for so long, to where it's like, I mean, it's probably resistant to so much, and then I've tried so many things. And one of the things about trying things and not really knowing how long to try it and how much is that, like, if you try some type of a protocol, I guess I could say, and then you stop it too soon or you don't take enough, the bacteria, the parasites, the mold, whatever in the world can like become resistant to it and form more biofilms against whatever, and then like it's not going to work. But yeah, anywho. So when I found out or heard recently that like that can cause false negatives, having too low stomach acid, which doesn't really make sense. I would think that like having higher stomach acid or supplemented stomach acid while like trying to take a breath test for this will like cause the bacteria to go dormant. But apparently like alkalinity can cause false negatives and for the bacteria to go dormant, especially with like H. pylori. And it made me think about like maybe like the starvation abuse, for one, that like lower my stomach acid more, and of course cause like more malnutrition than I already have from the iatrogenic metabolic issues. And that's totally why like my immune system got even worse, and why like my stomach acid and mineral and vitamin levels and all that was able to get worse, to the point where like I was able to show more symptoms of like mold toxicity than like most of my other relatives when I was like staying with my sister, my older neighbor sister, like right before escaping. Like I do feel like maybe if even with the iatrogenic metabolic issues and all that, if I wouldn't have went through the starvation abuse and stuff, then like a lot of things wouldn't have been able to affect me as bad as they eventually did. Like I had been in mold toxicity my whole life, like most people have been, but it wasn't until like right before escaping that like I really started to really not be able to take the mold and the H. pylori and the SIBO and a whole bunch of things that I definitely been had. And then another thing was starvation abuse and having to like sneak eat and being told that like the kitchen is closed, and the different food wars that would go on, as I call them, which I still have videos about this on the Abuse Evidence channels. I know I have a clip of the Y'all Spike food thing, and I think at the end of the Nobody Gives a Crap About Anybody video, I think I still have this one video from this one situation that comes to mind a lot when I think about all this, where like I was trying to sneak to cook something and to eat for like literally the first time in the day, because I think I thought that everybody was asleep, or maybe my mom and her boyfriend had a job at this point in time, I think, maybe. But either way, definitely it was nighttime, and I was hoping that everybody was asleep. And I think maybe my mom's boyfriend wasn't there, but I can't really remember. But either way, eventually he woke up, or he came home, and then he cursed me out and told me to get out the kitchen. The kitchen is closed, and I shouldn't be in the kitchen eating all that bull crap. And it was just like really annoying, because I was literally just trying to sneak to boil an egg. Like literally I hadn't eaten anything the whole day, and I was just trying to eat one egg, and I didn't even get to do that before getting caught. And that definitely did all make things like a lot worse. Like I feel like if my stomach acid levels would have been able to stay up the part, even with the iatrogenic illness, I wouldn't have been able to like eventually get really, really sick from SIBO and H. pylori and all the other stuff, and the mold toxicity. And so then the next bullet point, iatrogenic immune compromise and brain and organ damage and intestine damage and dysbiosis, plus lowering stomach acid due to starvation abuse, led to me getting more sick due to symptom causing and dormant fungus, bacterial overgrowth, and parasites. The cycle of malnutrition keeps everything going. I say this because you need zinc and copper to even make stomach acid, but if you can't digest food due to iatrogenic organ damage and intestinal nerve damage, and then stomach acid being alkalized by H. pylori and whatever else, you can't digest food to get the zinc and copper to make stomach acid, and it all just keeps the cycle going. And then I took some notes on strep/tonsil infection. So I remember, or I was recently reminded that one of the bacterial overgrowths that somebody can have when it comes to gut dysbiosis is streptococcus. And I know with the tonsil infection you have like more bacteria overgrowth from like the tonsil stones and stuff than just strep. But like I do believe that having that tonsil infection for the amount of years that I did, while already having poor health and iatrogenic health issues and the starvation abuse and stuff, which by the way I had already dropped down 80 pounds from the iatrogenic health issues way before I started going through starvation abuse. But I do believe that tonsil infection did cause like even more bacterial overgrowth, and I believe that it could also have caused like strep overgrowth, along with like all of the methane and sulfur, SIBO stuff that you can have. And what else was I gonna say with that? Oh yeah, then that caused my oral health to go downhill, which I also feel like the malnutrition plays a big part in that, because like when you're malnourished, your body will start to strip calcium from like your bones and your spine and your teeth and stuff. And then there was some other stuff with that. Oh yeah, but the point that I was getting at though with that is that a lot of health issues start in your mouth. So like they start orally, like even eventually having strokes and stuff like that can come from like having cavities and just gum infections and stuff that you don't even know about. So oh yeah, another thing with starvation abuse is that when you have to sneak to eat stuff, or you're just like have to eat whatever you can, this can also cause you to eat food that's old, or to have to try to like cook things really quickly, like with the egg situation that didn't even work out. And when you're trying to cook things really quickly and try to sneak to hurry up and eat stuff, you're also eating like a lot of undercooked or not even cooked at all stuff really. And that can also cause salmonella, E. coli, and other things that can destroy your gut and screw your motility and what's that thing called, your migraine and motor complex, and also lead to SIBO and stuff like that. And I definitely feel like there was a lot of situations where I had to eat things that weren't anywhere near all the way cooked or were barely all the way cooked due to having to sneak to eat stuff. Okay, so next bullet point. Tonsil infection for over 3 years and cavities, or I believe the infection, malnutrition, and trouble brushing teeth due to one, just my health getting really bad, especially like the spine issues eventually, but then also sometimes not even having a toothbrush, which is a whole side situation. But generally due to health getting bad, I believe that caused cavities, because there's this point in time where, because like I said, I went through a lot of medical neglect as well. My dad, before I went with my mom and them that last time, before eventually running away, I was with my dad again, and he didn't take me to the dentist like at all the whole time I was there. And when I went with my mom again, and she took me and my siblings to a dentist on their 6-month mark or whatever, I found out that I had a cavity in literally like all of my teeth. And it was really interesting because I wasn't having pain. But I remember even my mom was like, she didn't understand how or why I had cavities, because like I had never had a cavity before, and I don't even eat candy. Like I never liked candy and sweets and all that. Even before I got sick and I had like the iatrogenic metabolic and blood sugar issues, I actually never liked candy and cake and all that stuff. It was always really nasty. But yeah, so of course like the dentists, they're just dentists, so like they don't really have answers for that. But I do believe that was like due to malnutrition and also the tonsil infection that I had for years, which yeah, so there's that. Just too much bacterial overgrown in the mouth and messing up my teeth the more. Next bullet point. Impaired motility from anticholinergic side effects equals bacterial overgrowth, and possible cell mutation from rot in stool during bowel infections, and fermenting food due to turned off motility, low HCl, low enzymes, poor bile flow, intestinal damage, diverticulitis, all that stuff, especially from the bacterial overgrowth. And even, no, well, yeah, that too, but I meant to say, especially from the bowel impactions, because like when you have bowel impactions and this stool is just sitting there and it's building up in your stomach, like your literal stomach, and the rest of your like digestive system doesn't have any more space from the impactions, because I had impactions from top to bottom, even to the point where like there was a lot of times where I couldn't even eat anymore, and I would just end up throwing everything up because my bowel was so impacted. There was nowhere for my food to go after leaving my stomach, so my body would just throw it up. due to the neurotoxic psychotropic side effects when I was 12 and also 13, because I was only on the drugs from mid 12 to early 14 anyways, which is funny because like most people are on those drugs like their entire life from like age 4 to 30 and 14 to almost 20 and stuff like that, and they don't even they're still going to get their brain damage from the PSSD. They're just going to be told to like ignore it. They're going to be gaslit about it to where they don't notice the side effects. But some people like me definitely do like have more very obvious side effects quicker, and they get very sick quicker and more obviously, and they can't be easily gaslit about it because like the side effects are just so obvious. But you're going to have issues from it regardless because they're not safe. What was I saying though? Crap. I think I was saying that like when the stool builds up in the bowels or the colon or whatever in the world, it eventually has to like stack on top of each other, which just causes like a lot of pushing, and then like even the bacteria just like eating away and digging into like your intestinal and digestive system layers and all that stuff. So yeah, that can cause diverticulitis and all that. I do feel like my colon used to be way more inflamed, but like lately, for months now, like I don't really have all that colon pain and stuff, like especially since I finally recently got my oxybol timing right, because my gut motility is like so off, and like my digestion and stuff is so slowed. Like I was taking oxybol when technically you're supposed to, but it was too soon for me because like it can neutralize stomach acid because it's pretty alkaline, and if my food is still in the stomach even when it shouldn't be and I'm taking oxybol, it just caused issues because it would alkalize the stomach acid and then like I'd be in pain. But I finally got the timing right for that, and so that's improved a lot of stuff. But even like before that, I think my colon and stuff had healed enough to the point where like now I can have something other than explosive diarrhea without being in extreme pain. Not that the diarrhea didn't used to hurt too, but it's like when your intestines are really inflamed, your colon's really inflamed, when you have like regular bowel movements that like aren't diarrhea and you're not crapping mucus and water and stuff to where like it's easy to come out, it can cause pain for a while at first. So yeah. And then the next bullet point, this is kind of like irrelevant, but apparently there's a neurotransmitter depletion test, and I was just thinking, why doesn't the mental health system or the mainstream medical system in general do this? And that's one of the things about a lot of these tests that people really need, you can only get if you have like an allopathic or holistic health or functional natural medicine doctor. I mean, crap, even like when it comes to getting a GI map, like a lot of those things have to be like approved by like a doctor, and it's like you're not going to get a mainstream medical professional to approve that. You have to like go to somebody that's expensive and you got to pay out of pocket and all that stuff. And so the next bullet point, I'm not dependent on HCl and enzymes or bile, but I especially like think about the HCl with this. My production was just already severely impaired, and I truly needed digestive supplements all along to begin with. And I put this because like a lot of people, they've been like so brainwashed. I feel like you need to run to some primary care physician and go be gaslit and lied to. Like whenever you talk about curing your own issues, they start telling you that like what you do is dangerous. And I almost deleted the audio recording, but they just tell you like a lot of weird, like maybe you have factitious disorder, maybe you're just not trying hard enough, and you need to advocate for yourself for testing and pretty much just like where are your credentials at stuff. And they call like natural, functional, allopathic, and holistic medical professionals woo-woo, and just like the same stuff they do with chiropractors, except they have really no reason to do it with like these different types of doctors. But it's like people will say that like supplements are dangerous and you're going to become dependent, or they may even like accuse me of being dependent because I started taking them. But really the thing is that you should only even be able to become quote unquote dependent on HCl and stuff like that if you already really had low stomach acid and you really needed HCl supplementation in the first place. Like if you're producing stomach acid, you can't become dependent or really need supplemental stomach acid. Although a lot of people aren't producing enough and they just don't know it. But it just may not be as bad for them. It depends on like how sick you get really. Then the next bullet point, always mold symptoms. Wait a minute. I think I already talked about this. Eczema, sinus, horrible memory. Oh, I remember this. So, my whole life, because I first moved in with my grandma at 8, and then it was like a lot of off and on stuff with that, even before I moved in with my mom and them, and specifically my older neighbor sister, because we lived in her house that last time before running away. I lived with my dad and grandma. Me and my dad both had a really bad, well, we both do have a bad memory, and he would always say it was because he had a lot of strokes and all the black spots in his brain. But honestly, aside from like all the trauma, and I mean of course the strokes as well, I would definitely say it's because of living in mold toxicity. And then I also wonder if my grandma's house had asbestos and formaldehyde and all that stuff that I started researching when I started studying green and sustainable construction, which, like I said in plenty of other videos, when I started researching that made my health issues and other people's health issues and a lot of stuff make even more sense. And so anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah, my grandma used to always tell me and my dad that if our head wasn't attached to our body, we would lose that too. She would always say that it didn't make sense that like our minds were so horrible and terrible that they weren't working how they were supposed to. And I know when I like started researching demonology more, I would think like a lot about the marine kingdom spirit, specifically like Leviathan, Jezebel, not really Jezebel at that point in time, but specifically Leviathan and the octopus spirit, which are also tied to quote-unquote narcissism or narcissistic abuse, especially the Jezebel spirit. But one of the things with Leviathan and the octopus spirit is that they can like cause like brain fog and a lot of like memory issues. But also the more I started researching like just regular like physical stuff, it made things make even more sense. And so yeah, I think about that quote from my grandma, and her memory was is way better than ours. And like I don't know how I guess she's just used to the mold or something, I don't know. But fibro, swollen neck lymph nodes, high testosterone, early puberty, somewhat, or early pubic hair growth, I guess. I don't know, because it's like I feel like due to like the malnutrition, well no, due to being forced on the drugs for one, the malnutrition, going through sleep deprivation abuse since 8 as well, that like really screwed up my growth. And like I said, I'm severely underweight, but that's like a side thing to also being just like really underdeveloped, which I guess is really common in like areas where people eat more processed foods as well. But anywho, so it's like, I mean, I'm still trying to figure out if I'm really going to go through puberty or not, but I'm just trying to like put it in the back of my head and not think about it. But anywho, the point that I was getting at with that though is that like mold toxicity, just like being intersex or having metabolic issues that cause what used to be called PCOS, but now as of I guess like earlier or something is now called PMOS or something like that, polyendocrine metabolic something, which is actually a better label since ADHD, if you actually have real symptoms and you're not just like getting the bad black boy ADHD label or something, ADHD, PCOS, dementia, and I'm 100% sure even certain types of actual schizophrenia are caused by metabolic issues or forms of diabetes of the brain. And things like dementia, I mean, they're already known to be that anyways, but all that is metabolic issues. But it can also be caused by mold toxicity, and mold can like raise your androgens and your testosterone levels. And I also wonder if that's like part of why I always had high testosterone, but I always felt like I was secretly intersex as well, so I don't know. But I already talked about my stepmom's lung collapsing, so I think that was pretty much it. And so yeah, like I said, I think about curing myself how I think about possible success. If I fail, at least I tried. If it goes left, at least I tried. And if it works out, then I'm finally gonna be better. I seen in I don't even really remember if it was an MCAS group or something else, or maybe it was SIBO. I can't really remember, but somebody mentioned or someone was telling someone that they don't think GI maps are like that worth it, but that people should get like their detox genes tested. And I don't really know what all the detox genes are, but I know that they did mention getting methylation genes tested, which that sounds probably way more expensive than getting a GI map. But anywho, it's funny because I've came across a couple videos, which I'll put some in the description. I know, especially with this one guy, like I don't remember his name, but his face comes to mind. He wears like this suit or something. I've seen a couple videos with that guy and other people talking about methylation and are you a poor methylator? Although either I wasn't really paying attention or I just don't remember much about those videos, but I don't really remember like them actually breaking it down as like a detox gene. And like once I saw that comment in that support group, it actually made the whole methylation, are you a poor methylator videos make a lot of sense finally, once like they put the whole detox gene comment there. But anywho, another thing that I think about is how, like, aside from the fact that neurotoxin psychotropics are just neurotoxins, I do remember that I would be told sometimes that maybe I also have like a genetic predisposition to where like I am even worse at like processing the meds and like I can't metabolize them, and so I'm gonna get more sick more obviously than like other people often do. But I mean, at the end of the day, you're always gonna get side effects. You're always gonna get the brain damage. You're gonna get the metabolic syndrome / type 2 diabetes and all the other stuff, and you're gonna get permanent brain damage and health issues. But like I said before, some people definitely do get more obviously sick and even die from psychotropics quicker. Like I even came across a video a couple of days ago of a psychiatrist talking to this lady, and she was talking about how her 11-year-old daughter died from antidepressants. And yeah, so I've made posts and stuff about different videos like that I've seen throughout the years. But anywho, to get to the point though, people will say things like, well, or people especially used to tell me, well, maybe you guys so sick, or you are so sick from the drugs because they're made for people that have a chemical imbalance, but you didn't have one. But that's honestly bullcrap. The drugs are made to turn off neurotransmitters and make the body work. They're gonna give people brain damage. They're gonna kill brain cells. They're gonna do what they're pretty much made to do. So it's gonna happen regardless. And also, like, there is no proof that people actually have a chemical imbalance. Like, the drugs are made, they create a chemical imbalance that wasn't already there. And then also, if you have the chemical imbalance, or really any of that stuff, they could actually give you a test for it, but they don't. There are no real tests, or at least I used to always say that there are no real tests for any of these issues. But once I started like scraping up money from selling art when I was in Cali, and I found out about the walk-in labs, Quest, and LabCorp's loophole, where like I could go get like tests done that were honestly pretty expensive, without like ID or any of that, which I guess they're supposed to ask for ID, but they didn't ask me. When I found out about that, and I would like scroll through walk-in labs and Quest website, I did actually see like tests for like ADHD and stuff like that, but you never get any of those in the human cash cow systems and the cash for kids system, which the mental health system is tied in every branch of the human cash cow systems. You don't get any of those tests. There are no tests for any of these things. which you can go to my next video. I'm gonna make another video that's gonna hopefully be really, really short about how people think there's like an illness fake and trend, that all the kids these days think they're depressed and all the kids think they're autistic. It's not really people are like pretending to have things, or they think that. Doctors and teachers are telling people that they have these made up labels that there are no tests for, and people are taught to trust the science and just listen to your doctor, and that the doctor knows best, so they just believe and go along with it. It's not really that people are faking anything. Anywho, to get to the point, I wonder if like since psychotropics and all these different like pharmaceuticals or toxins, if like people who are poor methylators can also get sicker from these drugs easier because they can't detox these toxins that you're told are meds. And so that's my last point.